Carrie Geren Scoggins Political Newsletter, Bible Prophecy Times Edition Update. On the hot topic of Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty being indefinitely suspended for expressing his personal religious beliefs on the issue of homosexuality when speaking in a public interview. To date, there has been many infractions by A&E television station violating Duck Dynasty's Christian civil rights. In taking a closer look at what Christian civil rights are currently, one finds that the federal Supreme Court has overturned the hate speech laws, as it violated separation of church and state in keeping the state out of the church and stopping religious censorship. The federal Supreme Court supported and upheld our legal right to, quote, debate the issues. That gives Christians rights to quote Romans chapter 1 or any other scripture and debate any issue from the standpoint of the Christian faith, or be it a scientific debate or a political debate. It is the legal right to debate the issue straight across the board from any viewpoint. Government and private businesses are expected to uphold and respect the federal Supreme Court decision in keeping with our legal rights to debate the issue. Christians are identified as a, quote, protected class under federal law. They are a federally protected class under religion. This means that Christians are protected from discrimination. The federal Supreme Court supported Christian civil rights in the case where the Boy Scouts were sued for not hiring homosexual scout leaders. In the court hearing, the federal Supreme Court stated, Christians have the legal right to, quote, adhere to Christian, quote, core values. It is noted that all the major Christian denominations adhere to Romans chapter 1, scriptures on homosexuality, referring to homosexuality as a sinful act, as their, quote, core values. In knowing that the hate speech laws, anti-Christian censorship, was overturned in the federal Supreme Court, and now Christians have the legal right to debate the issue, and now have the legal right to, quote, adhere to core values, which indeed is Romans chapter 1, we see that the attempt at anti-Christian censorship is being thwarted. It is unconstitutional. It violates separation of church and state in keeping the state out of the church and upholds their freedom of religious speech. The freedom of speech truly is the legal right to debate any issue, not worrying if someone else is going to become offended and bringing in censorship. Debating is arguing and taking opposing viewpoints that others find offensive. Freedom of speech is a radical idea that very few can handle. The Democrats only wanted their viewpoint stated publicly, and anyone that opposed their viewpoints to be censored out as offensive. Freedom of speech is freedom straight across the board, and that includes freedom for Christians as well. You are not a libertarian until you support the legal rights of those that you despise. It means freedom of speech straight across the board without censoring out those that oppose popular lamestream viewpoints. If our nation had succumbed to political and religious censorship of any radical, non-mainstream ideal, all of our founding fathers, civil rights leaders, mainstream Christians would have been censored out. This is not a Marxist state. It was Karl Marx that wanted censorship of anyone that opposed their ideals, putting up a board or bureau to decide what can be or cannot be said publicly, or even privately in their homes. Collectivism, working for the collective good, where the government decides what you can and cannot say and how you can live, as to what is for the collective good. Our founding fathers, such as Thomas Jefferson, supported the rights of the individual as opposed to the collective good. Our founding fathers said collectivism took away our personal decision-making, and that collectivism gave too much power to the government to control our personal lives. Freedom of speech was a value our founding fathers held dear. Our founding fathers supported freedom of speech and freedom of religion and freedom of religious speech, even while standing on government land and working as government employees. We know this by their very actions, as they quoted the Bible over 15,000 times in sessions, making our laws, as they were then standing on government land and on the government time clock as government employees. We know their intent by their very actions. They wanted us to have the same freedoms that they themselves practiced. It shows that their intent was not a, quote, freedom from religion. This was shown in the federal Supreme Court, as in many cases where the Democrats and liberals wanted to bring in censorship, saying that there was a, quote, freedom from religion, and the federal Supreme Court did not agree. There was never a freedom from religion found by our federal Supreme Court. There is no freedom from religion. Our founding fathers quoted the Bible and prayed openly to God over a documented 15,000 times while standing on government land and while they themselves were government employees. This is not a freedom from religion. They expected tolerance. Others were to be tolerant of their Christian religious faith and of all their different faiths that were represented. Some were deists, some were agnostics, most were Christians, and they expected tolerance from those that opposed their viewpoints. The attempt from Democrats to bring in anti-Christian censorship is the opposite of religious tolerance. Those that are pressing for anti-Christian censorship are practicing religious bigotry. They are stirring up fear and ignorance of Christians and other religious groups that oppose their viewpoint, hoping to stigmatize them as some form of radical extremist that needs to be feared by the public, which is indeed coercion and violates Christian religious civil liberties. Their main goal is to censor Christianity out of mainstream life, trying to stigmatize them as extremists and radicals because they hold an opposing viewpoint to their own. Again, they do not support freedom straight across the board. They only want freedom for their viewpoints to be spoken publicly. In the United States, there is no freedom from religion. There is no religious censorship, nor political censorship. There are no hate speech laws. They were overturned in the federal Supreme Court, supporting the Christians' legal right to debate the issue. Christians not only have the legal right to debate the issue of homosexuality or any other issue, they also have the legal right now to adhere to, quote, core values. Again, there is no freedom from religion in the United States. If they don't like the Christian religious viewpoints being represented, tolerance is expected. Religious tolerance, that is the opposite of censorship. In the United States, we have freedom of speech, where no opposing viewpoint will be censored out. We do not have Marxist censorship. The hate speech laws were overturned due to the constitutionality. It opposed free speech and freedom of religious practices. Our federal Supreme Court overturned the hate speech laws, ensuring that we have the, quote, legal right to debate the issue. That means taking an opposing viewpoint. Remember, you are not a libertarian until you support the legal rights of those that you despise, ensuring Christians have their civil rights fully intact as well. This has been another edition of Carrie Geren Scoggins' Political Newsletter Bible Prophecy Times Edition Update. Look for more information at Carrie Geren Scoggins' Political Newsletter and Carrie Geren Scoggins' Political Newsletter Bible Prophecy Times Edition, Facebook pages and bloggers.